Welcome to Spiritual Healing Coach. I'm really glad you found your way here today. Today we're counting down 5 lies about spiritual warfare that hurt Christians, ideas many of us were taught without question, ideas that often create fear, shame, and constant pressure instead of peace. I've walked alongside many people, and lived parts of this journey myself, who were told that exhaustion meant failure and fear meant faith. What we're moving toward here is something different: clarity, rest, and a confidence rooted in truth rather than vigilance. This isn't about denying spiritual reality. It's about unlearning what harms and reclaiming what heals. You're not alone. Let's begin together, starting with number 5. Lie number 5: everything is a spiritual battle. One of the most damaging lies many Christians are taught is that everything is spiritual warfare. Every conflict, every doubt, every hard season is framed as an attack. Over time, this creates a life of constant vigilance, always bracing, always scanning for danger, always wondering what you did wrong to open a door. But Scripture does not teach that everything is a battle. Yes, spiritual conflict exists. But the Bible is also honest about grief, burnout, trauma, sickness, and human limitation. Not every struggle is demonic. Sometimes you are tired because you are tired. Sometimes you are anxious because something truly harmed you. Sometimes your body and nervous system are asking for care, not combat. When everything is labeled warfare, people lose permission to rest. They stop listening to their bodies. They override their intuition. They stay in harmful situations because leaving feels like surrender instead of wisdom. Jesus did not treat exhausted people like soldiers who needed to fight harder. He fed them. He rested with them. He told them the burden was not meant to crush them. If your faith has taught you that peace is suspicious and rest is dangerous, this lie may be at work in your life. Spiritual maturity is not proven by constant alertness. It is often revealed by discernment, knowing when to act and knowing when to rest. Not everything is a battle, and recognizing that is not weakness, it's wisdom. Lie number 4: questioning authority helps the enemy. Another deeply harmful lie is the belief that questioning spiritual leaders, teachings, or systems automatically puts you on the wrong side of God. Many Christians are taught, directly or indirectly, that doubt is dangerous, questions are rebellious, and silence equals faithfulness. But this lie confuses loyalty with obedience and control with trust. In healthy faith, questions are not threats. They are signals. They are how wisdom grows. Scripture itself is full of questioning, lament, protest, wrestling, and discernment. The Psalms question God openly. The disciples question Jesus constantly. Even Jesus challenges religious authority when it harms people. When questioning is framed as spiritual attack, it creates an environment where harm can hide. People learn to suppress their concerns, ignore their instincts, and mistrust their own discernment. Over time, this leads to confusion, self-doubt, and dependence on leaders instead of truth. Spiritual authority was never meant to replace conscience. Leaders are meant to guide, not override. When a system requires silence to survive, something is already wrong. If you were told that asking hard questions meant you were deceived, divisive, or under attack, that teaching did not protect your faith, it weakened it. Faith that cannot be questioned becomes fragile. Faith that welcomes truth becomes resilient. Questioning abuse is not rebellion. It is alignment with truth. And truth does not fear the light. Lie number 3: if you're suffering, you're losing spiritually. One of the most quietly damaging lies in spiritual warfare, teaching is the idea that ongoing pain means you're failing, unprotected, or losing ground spiritually. When suffering is interpreted as defeat, people begin to turn inward with shame instead of outward for help. This lie teaches Christians to measure faith by outcomes, by how quickly things improve, how strong they feel, or how victorious they appear. When healing takes time, or when prayers don't bring immediate relief, people assume something is wrong with them. but suffering is not evidence of spiritual failure. Scripture never presents pain as proof that God has withdrawn or that faith is weak. Many faithful people endured long seasons of grief, injustice, illness, and confusion without being rescued on demand. Their suffering was not a scoreboard, it was part of their humanity. When suffering is framed as spiritual loss, people hide. They stop being honest. They blame themselves for trauma they didn't cause. They stay silent because admitting pain feels like admitting defeat. Jesus did not shame people for suffering. He moved toward them. He named their pain. He did not demand spiritual explanations before offering compassion. If you were taught that ongoing struggle meant you weren't praying hard enough, believing strongly enough, or fighting faithfully enough, that belief did not strengthen your faith. It isolated you. Suffering does not mean you are losing. Often, it means you are human in a broken world, and still deeply loved. Lie number 2. Leaders have special spiritual covering that protects them from accountability. This lie teaches that certain leaders are so anointed, chosen, or spiritually elevated that questioning them is dangerous, or even sinful. Accountability is framed as rebellion, and exposure is treated as an attack on God rather than a response to harm. But spiritual authority was never meant to function as spiritual immunity. When leaders are placed beyond accountability, power concentrates, secrecy grows, and abuse finds protection. Titles, callings, and charisma begin to matter more than character and integrity. People are taught to ignore warning signs because God will deal with it, even when real people are being hurt. Scripture does not support this idea. No leader in the Bible is above correction. Prophets challenge kings. Jesus confronts religious authorities. Leadership is repeatedly tied to humility, service, and responsibility, not exemption. When spiritual covering is used to shield leaders from consequences, it reverses its purpose. Covering was meant to protect the vulnerable, not the powerful. When systems prioritize preserving a leader's reputation over addressing harm, something has already gone wrong. If you were told that holding leaders accountable meant touching what was sacred, that teaching likely protected a system, not your faith. True spiritual leadership welcomes the light. It does not fear scrutiny. Accountability is not spiritual warfare. It is spiritual health. And any structure that cannot withstand honest examination is not sustained by truth. Lie number 1. Fear is discernment. The most damaging lie of all is the belief that fear is a sign of spiritual insight, that constant suspicion, anxiety, and alertness mean you are spiritually mature. Many Christians are taught to trust fear as wisdom and unease as guidance. But fear is not discernment. Discernment brings clarity. Fear brings confusion. Discernment grounds you in truth. Fear keeps your body and mind in a state of constant alarm. When fear is treated as spiritual sensitivity, people stop trusting peace, rest, and intuition. Calm begins to feel dangerous. Safety feels naive. This lie trains people to live hyper-vigilant lives, always scanning for threats, always second-guessing themselves, always bracing for attack. Over time, this erodes trust, not just in others, but in God. A faith built on fear cannot sustain love. Scripture consistently teaches that wisdom produces clarity and steadiness, not panic. The presence of God is associated with peace, not relentless anxiety. Even when danger is real, fear is never presented as the guiding voice. If you were taught to mistrust peace or believe that anxiety meant you were spiritually alert, that teaching did not sharpen discernment, it replaced it. Fear narrows your vision. Discernment expands it. You do not honor God by living afraid. You honor truth by living awake, grounded, and free. Discernment is not loud, it is steady, and it does not require fear to function. If this video supported you in any way, you can help sustain Spiritual Healing Coach by visiting ko-fi.com/Spiritual Healing Coach. Your support makes it possible to keep creating calm, honest, healing-centered content free for everyone who needs it.